Welcome to Kiss the Reviews. I'm Armando, that's Corey, and today we're doing 2008's Iron Man. This one was requested by Steph on Patreon, and let's get into this. So if you want to follow us on the social medias, you can follow us at Kiss the Reviews on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. As always, if you want to follow us for all the extras and movie clips and yada, yada, yada down the line, and just a better experience overall with me and Corey, you can find us on Patreon at Kiss the Reviews.
I just bashed my hand.
Yeah.
YouTube is basically Spirit Airlines. And, Patreon is a better airline. I can only afford to fly on Spirit because none of you will sign up for Patreon.
Oh, shit. Well, let's hop into the cast because this is a good one of 2008's Iron Man. So this film stars Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper Potts, Terrence Howard as Colonel James Rhodes, and Jeff Bridges as Obadiah Stane.
You brought it up, not me, just by reading the cast. So I guess it's not really your fault, but I'm totally blaming you.
That's fine. I'll take it.
Is Terrence Howard batshit fucking crazy?
I think not getting the second movie and beyond caused him to go down a rabbit hole. And now he's like, one times one is 7, man.
Dude.
Like he's certifiable.
He doesn't understand the periodic table, bro. He thinks it should be like a fart bubble or some shit. Like, I don't. Dude, he's nuts. I was sort of on his side because I have nothing against Don Cheadle. But I was like, yeah, if Terrence Howard brought Robert Downey Jr. into this,
yes,
he was the one that certified him, kind of gave him that, reassurance, being the studio, that he could do the job and stay clean. And then the second movie, they're like, yeah, here's $20 million for Robert, and here's a middle finger to you, black actor, suck a dick.
Yeah.
I was on his side with that shit. And then he's like, math is dumb. And math doesn't mean math anymore. And I'm just like, maybe they were just like, get this fucking guy off the set.
Yeah, I don't know why or how, we've obviously heard the stories since.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say this about Terrence Howard, because I actually like Terrence Howard as an actor.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like
I only like him for his political theories. I don't think he acts for shit. But I think his science is sound as fuck.
I think Don Cheadle, and maybe it's because Robert Downey Jr. and Don Cheadle are actually I think they're friends and they've known each other for whatever. Whatever the case is, Don Cheadle in that role, it has a whole different feel to it. There was Don Cheadle brought the seriousness to it. Terrence Howard had it was a little bit more jovial and light. And Cheadle brought a more seriousness to it. We're friends, but I'm also I'm fucking in the military guy kind of feel to it.
Yes. I agree with that.
At the end of the day, I mean, how many times have we seen something like this happen? Because Terrence Howard was the highest paid actor on this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think they gave him $4 million.
Something like that, yeah.
They took a gamble on Robert Downey Jr. and they were like, here's a 12-pack of Busch Light and some.
Well, I don't think they gave him Busch Light. They probably gave him some Pure Water or something.
They were like, here's a book of stamps. Do you want to do this movie or not?
Yeah.
And
I think they gave Gwyneth Paltrow an investment in Goop. They're like, she wants to make candles out of her what? Just give her the fucking money.
But yeah, so obviously once this thing blew up, they were like, oh shit, we got to take this super serial moving forward. And again, I don't know why Terrence Howard, we have his side of the story, we have other people's sides of the story, but either way, I think it was good that they went in Cheadle's direction.
Yeah, it worked out better in the long run.
It really did for the whole series of movies.
Well, yeah, because
Uh,
when Tony starts doing math in some of these movies and like, look, I'm inventing time travel, he'd be like, yeah, man.
Because you know how I figured it out? What's one times one?
let's get into this one, man. So the movie opens after displaying the Jericho missile to the military. Tony Stark is riding with his military escorts through the desert in Afghanistan, and they're ambushed. Tony is critically wounded, and he's taken hostage by terrorists.
And this is a fun opening because one, it is a comic book movie, but Tony Stark, I said I wasn't going to do this. Tony Stark is one of the more flawed characters in like superhero thing. Like he's fucked
Yeah,
up. He's an alcoholic. He's misogynistic. He's fucking banging everyone. I mean, everyone, yo. Like even Barbara Streisand from The Mirror Has Two Faces. He's tapping that ass.
Hell yes.
Like them taking it to that level here where they're showing him drinking constantly, flirting with the corpsman in the Humvee,
yeah,
talking about her bone structure. You're like, okay, he's actually going to be Tony Stark. Whereas, like, I think the first couple like MCU movies were like the first Hulk movies,
yeah.
and they just went so far. Like Edward Norton wanted to have input, and fucking Eric Bana didn't know what the he's like. Oh, I'm Australian, mate. I don't know what a fucking Hulk is. Am I a possum? He didn't know. So that was a fucking train wreck of a movie. So like this one kind of coming into its own and having Tony Stark actually be Tony Stark was, I think, like got people's attention right off the jump. And
Yeah.
then having the actual terrorist influence, having blood coming out of his shirt through his thing because of shrapnel by one of his own missiles. Like there's a lot of subtext in this first 5 to 10 minutes
Yeah.
opening up the movie where you could tell exactly where it's going to go, even if you don't know that he's about to become Iron Man.
Yeah. And again, to your point, in the first 5 to 10 minutes, because this is who, and I don't care if it was like young Robert Downey Jr. I was kind of going through like all the films he had been in since he was young, like in the
Mhm.
80s and throughout. And I know that they took a gamble on him in this because he was such a train wreck for a period of time. Even the movies like Back to School, every scene that he was in, he stole the scene. He's
Yeah.
so charismatic. And in this first like 5 minutes, that first shot of him in the Humvee as they're driving, and he's just doing his like Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr. thing.
Mhm.
He's so charismatic from jump that you can't help but, even though he's kind of a piece of shit as the character, you can't help but like, dude, I really like this guy.
Yeah, like there's two things I noticed rewatching it this time, from a critical point of view. Is one, I truly believe this guy is a better actor sober than he
Oh
was
yeah.
when he was on the dirt. And
Yep.
that's rare because a lot of people can't do artists of any kind. Once they kick that habit, they lose something in their art. And he
Yep.
doesn't seem to have lost that at all. He's actually gained a better perspective. And kudos to him for coming off of the trajectory he was on and the fucking terrible shit that had followed him for years.
Yeah.
And to come back and do this movie where you're basically playing a very narcissistic alcoholic. It's like, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
But he's just sitting out there sipping apple juice like it's fucking bourbon and playing the role like a fucking champion.
Yes, it's very cool.
Tony's then imprisoned in a cave by the terrorist group, the Ten Rings, and an electromagnet powered by a car battery is built by his like roommate in the cave, Yinsen, and it keeps the shrapnel that wounded Tony from actually entering his heart and killing him. And we get the Ten Rings leader says that he'll set Stark free in exchange for him building a Jericho missile for the group. And they were like, here's all the stuff. Just let us know what you need. We'll set you free. Tony knows he's not going to set him free. So he's not going to keep his word. So he builds this arc reactor, this mini arc reactor to power the magnet in his chest.
I would caution everybody who is possibly taken hostage by a Middle Eastern terrorist against this. When they're like, hey, we're being cool to you right now. Do this thing. Just say yes. You don't actually have to do it, but save yourself the torture that's going to follow you saying no. No, your morals aren't paying attention right now. They're gone.
Yeah.
They're back in America where morals are a luxury.
Yes.
Your all of that shit is gone. Surviving is all you got.
Yes.
So cut the bullshit. Like, I refuse to build my missile. Because then you're going to get in that motherfucking dunk tank. And let me cue you in. The rest of yins ain't fucking Tony Stark. They're just going to kill you.
You were correct.
How about like, hey, can we just do a backdoor deal where you just like, I know you're building them. Can't you just like send them to us? We're going to have you build it in a cave with like a hammer and a screwdriver. Like, that's all we're giving you.
A box of scraps.
With a box of scraps!
I like the idea of where they're going, you know? We got to keep
Yeah.
you alive.
Yeah.
We didn't know, as they led on eventually, like, we didn't know this was Tony Stark. Now that we got him, we're going to keep him and use him.
Yeah.
But for them to, one, know what the Jericho missile is by name.
Yeah.
And then two, be like, yeah, look at all these weapons of yours we got. Build us something. Order it.
Or I
assume
don't know.
You got the onlines in here. I'll fucking order it.
You have a whole arsenal. What do you need the Jericho missile for? It looks like you're doing just fine with my shit.
Yeah. You're loaded up. You have them all still in boxes. Exhaust all of the munitions you have here, and then I'll start to worry about other shit for you.
Yes, exactly. But so instead, he goes back into the cave. He builds the, mini arc reactor, and it can be powered. I like this because it's like, oh, this can power you for 40 lifetimes, or it can power a suit for 15 minutes. So he gets to build in the suit as well.
Here's my question with that comment. That can power your heart for 40 of your lifetimes, or something really big for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Typically, when something can power something for a period of time, that means that the battery dies.
Yes.
So if you have this arc reactor that's pulling this shrapnel away from getting into your heart, and you're using that same thing that can only work for 15 minutes, does that not kill the arc reactor? Why? And if not, then why only 15 minutes?
I think you should ask Terrence Howard.
Tangential flight is the ability to fly around your own center of mass and have unlimited mid-air bonding.
So after they question if Stark is actually building this missile, they attack the workshop after Stark blows up a couple of guards that come through the door as he's trying to get into the suit of armor. Yinsen gets killed because he's trying to hold off the terrorists. And then Stark, this is probably one of my favorite scenes because Stark just starts bitch slapping his way out of this cave and it blows everything up. He's got the flamethrowers and he flies away and then crashes in the desert. And the suit just blows apart like a Lego man.
Yeah, this is where I really wish they would have kept the story focused more on him versus the 10 rings. And further on down the line, I wish they would have just kept these guys with the fucking 10 rings and not done Shang-Chi and 10 rings and we let these guys use our names and this guy wasn't real.
Yeah.
I hate that shit. But I digress. I wish they would have kept him versus these terrorists as the first movie.
Yeah.
and then arrested Obadiah Stane at the end of the movie, where you keep him around to come back as your bigger enemy later on down the line. Like, comic books do. That's my one issue with Marvel is they kill every good bad guy so fast.
Yeah.
It's a one and done for every single bad guy, and it's like that's not the fucking point of these guys keep coming back.
Yeah.
So I don't get what they're like. That's my one beef. I wish they would have just had it a little more contained with the first movie. But that said, I understand you didn't know what you had. You didn't know where you were going with the future and 22 movies in 10 years and all that shit. Like, you had no idea.
I'm going to go a different route with this.
No,
and
don't.
say that this didn't bother me because I never read the comic books. I didn't grow up reading comic books. I was just, we said it on the Patreon side of things before we started doing the review. I was never a huge comic book guy growing up. I watched the cartoons. I watched Super Friends and that kind of thing. So, like, these storylines, this like, oh, he doesn't die. He comes back late. Totally oblivious. I was just like, dude, there's like cool shit happening. And he's got flamethrowers and he like kills the guy. Fucking cool. Who's the next bad guy in the next movie? That's all I want to know. Like, I'm just a passenger on this ride. People that I know, like you and others that are like comic book guys, are like, well, I really didn't like this. I wish they would have done this. Which, if I had read the comic books, I might be in that camp too. But not knowing, ignorance is bliss. I'll just say that.
Let me take it. Let me take it a different way then, because I kept having this thought too throughout this movie. Take away the comic book Iron Man of this all. Yeah. You have a movie about a billionaire defense contractor, right? Who goes to the Middle East to do a presentation. He gets kidnapped and is tortured by terrorists and is forced to build a weapon for them that he knows will just wreak havoc. It doesn't have to be a Jericho, it could be a nuke, could be anything. He's a defense contractor, right?
Yeah.
So instead, he builds this suit. He gets out. That movie would focus on him versus that terrorist cell. Yeah. And then maybe broaden out to the end. I find the big bad was my business partner who sent me to the Middle East and set me all up to begin with.
Yeah.
Right. But because it's a comic book movie, that other guy in that big fucking suit has got to be there as soon as possible. You have to know who that other bad guy is as soon as possible. And that, for me, takes away a little bit of that draw. A little bit of that feel. There is no mystery there, whereas in a regular movie, there would have been a longer draw out as to what Obadiah was really doing behind the scenes.
Yeah, well, and Jeff Bridges does a great job here at letting you know, like, if you're not into the comics and whatnot, letting you know he's kind of a piece of shit, so he's probably the bad guy here, like, right off the rip, because he gets saved by Rhodes. He's in the desert walking through. He gets saved. He has this press conference, and he announces that Stark Industries isn't doing weapons anymore. That's not a thing, right? Mm-hmm. And Obadiah is immediately like, hey, that's going to ruin the company. And Tony's like, go kick rocks. But this is where Tony reveals to Obi that he built this miniaturized arc reactor. And he goes immediately to work in his workshop at home. Like, he takes his break from the company and he just starts building an improved version of his suit, as well as a more powerful arc reactor for his chest.
And there's a couple things in here where I'm just like, Rhodey's a dick. So, and we go back to when he rescues Tony in the things, right?
Yeah, yeah.
He was captured for how long does he say? 3 months?
I think so.
Something like that. He was in captivity for 3 months. And so the first thing Terrence Howard says when he shows up is,
how was the fun bee?
First off, don't do a 3-month-old callback when I just broke out of the fucking terrorist camp, asshat. What kind of fucking jerk does that? How is the Fundy?
A really good friend.
Yeah, I saw 16 fucking people die, you nut job. I had a car battery hooked up to my fucking chest. What are you talking about? So, and then second, when he does reveal to Obadiah that he's got the arc reactor in his chest, Jeff Bridges says, "Let me see it," and he keeps saying, "Who told you? Who told you? Pepper or Rhodey? Pepper or Rhodey?" And Obi doesn't answer, and he goes, "Okay, so it was Rhodey." So Rhodey told fucking the bad guy, that Tony had a fucking arc reactor in his chest because I don't know, he's a fucking gossip queen too. And then 3, he doesn't like math. No, and then 3, and then the third thing is Tony goes to him as he's building the Iron Man suit after the big press conference where he says, "We don't want to make weapons anymore." And Rhodey, being the military guy, is like, "We're glad to see you here. It's about time, man." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm not working on something for the military." And Rhodey's like, "Then get the fuck out of my face, friend."
What you need is time to get your mind right.
He treats him like a fucking asshole for no reason.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, like, I get it, but we're friends, aren't we? I've been treating you like a friend this whole time, and you're like, unless you're actually providing something substantial to the military, I don't need to know you.
What, you humanitarian now or something?
I don't like Rhodey in this movie. And maybe Don Cheadle would have had it played a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Whereas Terrence Howard, it just comes off a little assholic.
Well,
but
Terrence Howard, we've done Terrence Howard movies before.
Mm-hmm.
And even if the character's good, like that, he's kind of a dick when he plays
the Best Man movies. He's an asshole.
Yeah. So, like, I think that it just translates.
Basically, Terrence Howard is an asshole.
I'm not saying that.
Is what Armando just said on the record.
Listen, I don't know who he is.
Recording at 47 minutes and 29 seconds. Terrence Howard is a giant asshole.
You've never heard of that. How is that?
Stark here has Pepper help him replace the arc reactor in his chest. And Pepper puts the original reactor in the small little glass case as like a memento and foreshadowing and things. By the way, this scene is so gross. Like when she goes in and just like pulls the shit and it's all slimy and fucking.
She does such a good job with this.
And she does. She really does. Again, not a huge Gwyneth Paltrow fan. Really love her in this movie. In this whole series, like the whole franchise.
Gwyneth Paltrow has long been, and I don't know if it was just seeing her get her head cut off in 7 or what it was, but she has always been like that one skinny bitch where I'm like, yeah. I could get down with that.
Yeah, we know you don't like them skinny.
No, she's like one of 3. Maybe I would give my gift to.
Hell yes.
Stark here immediately gets to work on this new version of the suit. And Obi asks for Stark's plans for the mini arc reactor so he can pitch it to the board.
Mm-hmm.
And Stark gives him nothing and cuts to Stark test flying the components. He finally builds the full suit and he takes the suit for a joyride. And it's the silver suit. I almost like the silver suit better than the final suit. Like, this shit is nice.
Yeah, this is one of the things I think in a lot, again, they didn't know what they had at the time.
Yeah.
Because they do it later in a lot of the other movies. But this would have been cool if he, like, you have the big suit that was the original suit from the comics way back in the day. Like, the OG suit. So that was a cool nod. You're not watching that thing in a movie that'll clunk around for 2 hours. So I get that. The silver suit, totally dope. He should have had that, in my opinion, the majority of the movie. And at the end, upgraded to the hot rod, red and yellow.
Yeah, you get the reveal.
Exactly.
At the end. Yeah.
Which they do later on in a lot of these other movies.
Yeah.
So, again, this whole script, by the way, I'm not sure. I'm not telling anything anybody doesn't already know. This whole script was basically done on the fly. It wasn't necessarily improv, but it's about as close as you can get.
Yeah.
So again, when I say like they don't know what they had, they really did not know what they had. This whole like Infinity
No.
Saga, 22 movies, all this bullshit, that was not even close to being a
No.
real thing. It was a plan and a dream, but it
Yeah.
wasn't actually going to be something that was coming to fruition. Like the studio was struggling
Yeah.
big time.
No, absolutely. And so after this, like we get like some of the shots of the 10 rings gathering the pieces of Stark's original prototype suit that they find in the desert. Stark then makes his first like real public appearance since his return. And he finds out that Stark Industries is still doing like the whole weapons thing, including, the Jericho. They're delivering it under the table to the 10 rings, and it's being used to attack Yinsen's home village.
I have a question, Professor.
Yes, sir.
How is Vanity Fair getting the scoop on all of this shit?
That's okay. Going back to your point about like the script and they didn't know what they had. Like, I think they would have thought this one through a little bit more. I don't think it would have been some reporter from Vanity Fair.
Christine Everhart, HuffPo, online.
HuffPo.
I'm like, Vanity Fair?
No,
The first one I get, like the
Yeah.
first interaction, totally
Yes.
fine. But having her be the callback reporter who's like, I'm breaking big time stories for Vanity Fair. It's like, bitch, they ain't running that. They got the fucking Met Gala coming up. You see what Rihanna's wearing? They ain't give a shit about Gomera getting blown to shit.
Yeah, they're running stories on like the fall line. Like this is what's going to be popular coming up.
Fucking crazy. Look at Angelina Jolie adopting kids in war-torn Gomera. That's what they print.
You were right.
He learns here that like Obi is trying to replace him. Obi basically tells him like, "Hey, I was the one that was trying to kick you out. Like I'm the guy." This is where you get like, oh shit, like he's the real bad guy. He's selling these arms still, yada yada. But Stark goes. He takes his freshly painted armor and flies to Afghanistan, and he saves like the whole village. This scene is probably one of my favorites.
This is the best scene in the movie, or set of scenes in the movie. This is, I think, the shot or shots they built this whole movie around. Like this is what sold it to people, was shooting this initial, because it's so good. It's got a Western feel to it, coming in to clean up the town.
Yep.
Very just cool. The CGI looked good. Well, I mean, I think in this there wasn't much CGI. I think he's actually in the suit. So like, and for that to even be the case, it looked really good. It looked clean. It was believable. Him actually killing people again, like, he's mad. He's not there to throw fucking beanbag riot busters at people. He's there to Rittenhouse motherfuckers. Like, he's done. So having this happen is just like, wait a second, that's not a comic book. We're used to seeing Batman just string up bad guys by their feet.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And wait for the police to come and take them to jail.
Yep.
Nah, Iron Man ain't got no time for the fucking UN.
Yeah.
He's in there just busting heads.
Oh yeah, that's what I really liked about it, because you're used to people like in the comic books or in the cartoons early on. It was literally just, there's no killing, there's no, we're stringing guys up, we're gonna call the other people who take these people to prison, and that's what's gonna happen next. But he comes in, he decimates these guys in the coolest ways possible.
Yep.
And then my second favorite is him like, oh, I'm done. I'm going to fly back home. And he gets chased down by the two fighter jets.
This is really cool here too, because it demonstrates, one, his capabilities on the ground, and then two, his capabilities in the air. And then also when he like gets clipped and he hits the wing and the pilot has to eject and his chute won't open, it also shows that he's not like out of control like a fucking
Yeah.
adrenaline junkie. He
Yeah.
like was in complete control the whole time. He was just super pissed
Yeah.
and was ready to go whoop some ass.
Yeah.
And
And
so
I
him
like,
saving that guy showed that.
yeah, and I like the whole him in the suit. And this was the one thing that could have gone completely wrong.
Mhm.
Is because you need there's a couple of things that you need while he's in the suit, right? You need you need his face.
Yes.
It can't just be like kind of like Spider-Man. But Spider-Man and his mask, you could see the mouth moving. You can't just have the mask and his voiceover. That just looks stupid for 50% of the movie. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the way they shot it, it's just him and it's just like the black background in the mask
Oh, it's iconic.
with all the computer shit going on, and hear him calling Rhodey and Rhodey calling him on his cell phone and him
Mhm.
answering in the suit, and you get the little comedic piece here, him calling back and basically telling Rhodey that like, yeah, that's totally me. Like, I got to get back home and get these guys off my ass or whatever. But like, this whole piece was awesome. And again, that decision to have him shot in the mask, in the suit, was brilliant, to your point. It's a fucking iconic shot.
Oh yeah. And it's what I always enjoyed about that shot, especially like the first time really seeing it when he puts the mask on and he's bringing up all the displays. It's like, oh, that's what he's seeing in there, and that's what you would want to see. Like he's got weather reports, fucking
Yeah,
ATC. He's got all. It's like an Apple Watch in his fucking face. He's wearing the Apple
yeah,
glasses. It's so cool,
yeah.
so cool.
And Steve Jobs from this movie on was like, "How do we do this? And how do we implant something in everybody's brain so that we can get this done?"
I
Like
know
every
COVID
company
vaccines.
every company was like, "That's a cool shot. Can we make that real?" But we then see the meeting with the 10 rings and Obi, and he basically kills everybody, steals the suit so he can reverse engineer the whole thing. And Stark tries to find other weapons being delivered under the table, so he sends Pepper to Stark Industries to download all the ghost files. And she Obi finds her here in the office, right? And this scene always kind of bothered me a little bit because like he comes in, he's very like almost accusatory, he's trying to feel her out kind of thing.
Looks like he's trying to feel her up. He's fucking
Well,
gross in this scene.
that too. But like she gets the little memory stick and she bounces out of there and he takes the paper and then he circles to the back of the computer, right? She's got all the files and this proves that it was Obi was behind everything all along.
Mhm.
But she leaves, he sits behind the desk and he undoes the screensaver and it just says files download and he's like, "Ugh! You didn't know that? You didn't catch that like from jump as soon as he walks into the door. This is what nobody should do when they're at work and you walk through the door of their office or the office that she has every right to be in because that's
Mhm.
Stark's office, right? So she has every right to be in there. He walks in and she goes, "Oh!" Nobody has that reaction if they should be in a certain place at a certain time.
Yeah, like this was definitely more meant for us as the audience.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Just like, the very like obvious file downloaded 100%. Each step he took
Well, this
50%, 75%. He's getting closer to you 89%. Slow down your walk. It's only at 89%. You know what I mean? Like, these are the shots that are made for the kids. Just be like, oh, I didn't
well,
understand until I saw it
yeah,
said file downloaded. she put a whole file on this little tiny thing. It was as big as my thumb. It was crazy.
Well, this is a Hollywood thing. You're appealing to the lowest common denominator, so you got to make shit a little bit simple. But like this,
I
the
hate
whole
stupid people.
interaction, the whole interaction here was. Oh, I always found it just a little weird. Like
Mhm.
I'm looking around the theater, going, "Does everybody not get what's going on? Like, why are we doing this whole song and dance?"
Yeah, 100%. All of it from start to finish. And it almost seemed like they needed a way to bring Coulson back in and Shield
Yeah,
back into the mix and get them involved. And it was just her storming out of there. And like that was her safety net,
yeah,
was Coulson could get her out of the compound. But it's also like, dude, you're fucking Pepper Potts, like you're
yeah,
Tony Stark's right fucking hand.
yeah.
And you like Obi Stane's, arrest her. She stole my box of scraps.
With a box of scraps!
But no, and by the way, I'm totally there for this being the reason that we get Phil Coulson into this, because Phil Coulson is low key one of my favorite characters in the MCU universe.
I think he's everybody's favorite character.
I love this dude.
Yeah, Phil Coulson is everybody's side piece in the MCU.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Thor, Iron Man, Captain America.
Yeah.
But everybody's side chick is Phil Coulson.
Yes. He's the coolest dude on the fucking planet. I love that guy. I love that fucking guy. But so Obi watches her leave, but Obi then, we cut to Obi ambushing Stark at home. He uses like the little sonic device that paralyzes him. He takes the arc reactor out of his chest. He leaves Stark to die. Stark manages to crawl down to his lab and plug in his original reactor that Pepper put in the little glass case earlier in the movie.
Oh.
See how that works? That comes back around.
Comes back around 10 years later, too. Can't spoil why or how.
But Potts and Shield then attempt to arrest Obi, but he puts on his own, clunky Iron Man suit and he attacks them. This is where we get the fight between Stark and Obi. Stark is overmatched, so Stark lures Obi to the top of the Stark Industries building, has Pepper overload the arc reactor. This is where we get the final. He dies. He falls into the arc reactor. The one thing that I really did like was, again, everything in here is there for a reason. I know we make fun of some of this stuff, and people are probably shit on us, but I really don't care. But everything sets up something else, right? He's flying around earlier in the silver suit. He goes as high as he can go. We have the ice problem. He figures the ice problem out. So here he's overmatched, flies up into the sky, and he has the joke like, "Oh, how did you figure out the ice issue?" I really like how they do that in these movies. And it makes for a great movie. You're always setting, we always talk about comedy, like it's always about the bit. You're setting this up for something else. Like this is that along those same lines. And it gives you a little bit of comedy here.
Yep.
During explosions and him throwing you all over the place. So I dug this. And then obviously we get the very end piece where he's at the press conference the next day. He has Agent Coulson is in there. He gives them the cover story. And then he's like, fuck the cover story. I am Iron Man. And then we get credits. And then post credits.
Oh, what?
I know.
I've never seen
around.
this.
I know.
Thing.
Spoiler alert. Post credits. This is where we get the Shield director, Nick Fury. He comes in. He wants to discuss the Avengers initiative with him. But dude, all in all, this if this for a lot of people, because again, you brought up Hulk and things and whatever. I wasn't as into that stuff. Like even like the Batman stuff. when they brought it back, when they brought Christian Bale in and they did that. And those were huge movies. I
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
really into those like I was this. Like when Iron Man came out, I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm like a comic book movie nerd now. Like this kind of sucked me into that universe.
Yeah, like Iron Man, from a comic book perspective, Iron Man was always in, like the Avengers or the
Yeah,
Illuminati. He was always an important figure, but he
yeah,
was never like the guy. And what Robert Downey Jr. did, just elevating that character to the level he did, is so big. It's almost like what Marlon Brando and Al Pacino did for The Godfather. Like
yeah,
those characters in the book are really good, but they're not what you get on screen. What you get on
yeah,
screen is totally different,
yeah,
fully realized human beings. And that's what Tony Stark is. They put it in such an air of reality that he is and what do we always talk about with a lot of our action heroes? They're too perfect.
yeah.
This dude is so fucking flawed. He needs to donate some of them to Steven Seagal movies. You know what I like? You have a problem or two.
Yeah,
So, like, them being able to do that, it makes it more realistic. It brings the audience in a lot more. You can relate to the character or
yeah.
any of the other characters in this movie. Personally, I relate to Obadiah Stane. Make that money, cuz. Fuck it. But no, this whole I said it earlier, I'll say it again. This movie for me would have been fine as a standalone movie. You take out Tony Stark, you take out Iron Man. It's a defense contractor, gets kidnapped, has to invent this suit to escape, and ends up uncovering all kinds of crimes and
Yeah,
fucking conspiracies in his company. And so he has to move to thwart them.
yeah. No,
It's a dope movie in and
the
of
sto-
itself.
yeah, the story's good. Obviously, the Iron Man suit itself is so iconic.
Oh, it's so
Robert
cool.
Downey Jr. is so charismatic. Like it just there's people that have attempted this in other movies, not necessarily like superhero movies or whatever,
Mhm.
but there's people that have attempted this type of character and it doesn't play well. You know what I mean? But Robert Downey Jr. is so charismatic just naturally that it oozes off the screen. And he played it so it was a perfect time, perfect person, perfect role. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, I loved this movie when it came out. You know, you and I have talked about action movies. We love action movies. Action movies are cool. Shit blows
Mhm.
up and like somebody's always running. And there's a bad guy and you thwart the bad guy and yada yada. Like those are all great. Like you throw a Robert Downey Jr. into the mix and it's just like, oh yeah, no, I'm totally here for that.
Yeah. This is it's a good movie. It's still fun. You can still let your kids watch it, but there is that kind of like Pixar-ish adult humor in it
Yeah,
where you can watch it with your kids and not be bored shitless.
yeah,
Um Again, Robert Downey Jr. does a great job. Jon Favreau does not get enough credit for kickstarting
He-
what would be the MCU because if he fucked this up, it would not exist.
yeah.
And then people would have to figure out new insults to throw at us. But no, man, this movie's great. And as far as just what this kickstarted and what those first 22 movies did, it's amazing. Like you can't deny it's nothing like that has ever been done in cinema before. Just
Yeah,
hasn't been done. Whether they're roller coaster rides or they're real film or whatever you think, nobody has been able to achieve what that franchise achieved. If you want to talk about the later movies after Thanos, we'll do that, and I will
yeah,
shit all over them all day long. But this is just what a great way to start off what would be one of the, if not the biggest franchises of all time.
absolutely. Absolutely. I can't add anything more to that. Do you got anything else?
No, I'm so great. I can't even top that.
Well, we'll end it there. For Corey, I'm Armando. This is Kiss the Reviews, and this was 2008's Iron Man, requested by Steph on Patreon. Come join us there.